Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And he's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, board-certified criminal defense lawyer, and this is what I look like after a day kicking ass in court. I'm in the middle of a trial, but I'm taking a little break from prep so I can react, go to the well one more time, and talk about Amber Heard as she decides to, go and do her little publicity tour, right? I don't know why the she's doing this. It just doesn't make sense to me. Well, let's just see how gracious of a loser she is.
As you sit here with me now, has it sunk in?
Has it sunk in that you lost your fucking ass? Sorry. I shouldn't gloat. I'm not gloating because I wasn't even in the trial. But some things that defendants do just defy common sense. All right, let's watch this.
How could it? Surreal and difficult. In part, yes. This has been a long time coming.
Do you stand?
Notice her hair and makeup. Okay, now as guys, we're not supposed to comment on a woman's presence, but you know what? I'm going to anyway. She actually looks really good. I mean, but notice her makeup was very downplayed during the trial, and now it's a little more Hollywood-ish or movie-esque.
Stand by your testimony and your accusations against Johnny Depp about abuse.
Of course, to my dying day, will stand by every word of my testimony.
Here's the danger that she runs by getting on TV and standing by every word she said. This is more publication of the same shit that she talked about before, only it's a little more direct.
Amber Heard just got exposed.
Johnny, you hit me.
This is so cringe.
With clips spreading across social media like wildfire.
Social media? What's
the vast majority of this trial was played out on social media. I think that this trial is an example of that gone haywire, gone amok.
Oh, look at that face. Oh my God, I stopped it right at I stepped on a bee face. Anyway, here's the thing. To believe what she's saying, it did explode. It exploded for us on this channel, and I'll give her that. It did explode in social media. But to have that have an impact on the jury itself would mean that the jury completely disregarded the judge's instructions. And to impugn the integrity of the jury that way is misplaced without any evidence to back it up.
And the jury is not immune to that.
You think the jury saw it?
How could they not? I think even the most well-intentioned juror, it would have been impossible to avoid this.
Really impossible to not just log into TikTok? Well, sometimes it's impossible for me because I'm a TikTok fanatic, but it's not impossible. Juries take their oath very seriously. I've had situations where a juror has learned about some information and they come back and say later, hey, I learned about this, Judge, and I just wanted everybody to know because I didn't want it to be an issue. And it turns out not to be an issue. But jurors will come forward. They'll talk to each other, and if one says, hey, I learned about this on TikTok, or I learned about this on Instagram, or whatever, guess what? Another juror is going to report them. And so none of that crap happened in this trial. And they were admonished every single day of the trial. You take an oath as a juror. And so to not follow the court's instructions, guess what? You can be found in contempt. And you can be found in contempt by the judge. She can fine you or put you in jail if it's criminal contempt. And so because the judge could fine somebody in contempt, they take their oath very seriously. And they know it's a court order. And so for Amber to say that they would disregard the court's order, even the most well-intentioned juror, bullshit. They're gonna take measures to if it comes on TV, they turn it off. If it comes across their phone, they try to avoid it. And so I think she's really disrespecting the jury and the process.
Every single day I passed for 3, 4, sometimes 6 blocks, city blocks lined with people holding signs saying burn the witch, death to Amber. After 3.5 weeks, I took the stand and saw just a courtroom packed full of Captain Jack Sparrow fans.
Notice she didn't say the Amber Turd line, because I'm sure she doesn't like to hear that at all. That I saw that plenty. But that is a good point, though, because when she talks about, all the people surrounding the courthouse, she may have that she does have a point, because the jury, if my recollection is correct, weren't sequestered. So they're going to run through that gauntlet of fans, and they're going to see the signs and stuff like that. But I'll tell you this: if any of that crap was influencing the jury, they would have brought it to the judge's attention.
Who were vocal, energized.
Can you put into words how that felt?
This was the most humiliating and horrible thing I've ever been through. I have never felt more removed from my own humanity.
What does that mean? Removed from my own humanity. I mean, it's a meaningless statement.
I felt less than human.
Let's go back to the...
That is so ridiculous. This is just overacting once more.
the day of the verdict. Were you feeling confident?
That means no. Of course you weren't feeling confident. I was getting my fucking ass kicked.
That's a great question.
It's an easy one.
I wish I could say yes to that. I want to say yes
sucked,
to
my
you,
lawyer sucked.
but it wouldn't be true. Even if you think that I'm lying, you still couldn't tell me, look me in the eye and tell me that you think on social media there's been a fair representation.
Okay, she's not talking about anything that happened in the courtroom there. Even if you think I'm lying. Even if you think I'm lying, even if you think I fucking went into a courtroom and took an oath and then lied, it's not fair to call me all these names on social media. What about inside the courtroom? She's only talking about social media here.
That verdict came less than 2 years after a judge ruled against Depp in a similar case in the UK, in which he sued a British newspaper that called him a wife beater.
There was another trial, handled it dealt with the same substantive issues that had even more evidence in. In fact, my evidence was largely kept out. Really important pieces of evidence kept out. Done differently, handled differently by a judge instead of a jury.
Here's the thing. Totally different cases. Different laws, different standards of proof, different courts, different fact finders. So it's not analogous whatsoever. And what evidence does she have that was suppressed? I mean, there was a lot of evidence. I watched a big chunk of this trial. And this judge let in a whole bunch of shit that I wouldn't have let in if I was the judge, on both sides. So I think the judge was pretty liberal on what she let in and what she didn't let in.
Some evidence is admissible in a UK court that is not admissible in a US court. Do you think that maybe he just had better lawyers?
I will say his lawyers did certainly a better job of distracting the jury from the real issues.
Distracting the juries from what? The fact that I'm a liar? I mean, what Johnny Depp's lawyers did, she threw a softball up there and they hit it out of the fucking park. And they hit it out of the park with facts, with witnesses that were absolutely contradictory to, and she had no answer for those witnesses. So, like, you've got the park, the trailer park manager, completely contradicted her testimony, and she had nobody else to only herself. So that's really what the distraction was. The distraction was, I got my ass kicked.
Some people, they just were frankly disgusted by the whole thing and don't have much sympathy for either one of you. Can you understand that?
Absolutely. I would not blame the average person for looking at this and how it's been covered and not think that it is Hollywood brats at their worst.
Here's the thing. What was remarkable for me in this trial, and I think for a lot of people, was not the mountain of evidence, the lack thereof. Her claims did not have anything to back it up. I broke my nose. Okay, where's the evidence of you breaking your nose? No medical evidence. And you know what? I broke my nose. I got 2 black eyes, and I had to have my nose packed. Bullshit. She never broke her fucking nose. Then you've got the bruising. 6 days later, there's no contemporaneous pictures of any of the stuff she's talking about. But they've got Johnny Depp, passed out, with shit on him. They've got Johnny Depp laying on the floor. I mean, all these embarrassing things about Johnny Depp, but nothing about, that where she says the actual assaults happened. That's a problem for her.
But what people don't understand is it's actually so much bigger than that.
If you look at the lighting, This is at 4:29, okay? She almost looks on the right side like she's got a bruise on her cheek. And it's not a bruise. It's just shading from the lighting. But she's gorgeous. I mean, she's really a pretty girl. And you would think, and her nose looks exactly the same as it did when she was on the James Corden show.
This is not only about our First Amendment right to speak.
But here's the thing about the First Amendment. The First Amendment protects free speech. It doesn't protect lies that amount to defamation.
Here's the other thing about that. That's a very good point. You have freedom of speech. You don't have freedom of all speech. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater, right? Can you do that? No, you cannot. You can't call and make a prank phone call to the cops and have it not be a crime. You can't say whatever you want to say whenever you want to say it. Here's the other thing. The First Amendment only applies to government, okay? So if I'm making a First Amendment claim, it only applies if the government's trying to restrict my speech. It doesn't apply to private actors.
And that was the issue in the case.
Yes, exactly. You can't go into, the free speech does not protect you if you go into a crowded theater and you scream fire. We get the concept of free speech from the Greeks. My understanding of what that means is not just the freedom to speak. It's a freedom to speak truth to power.
But truth is the word.
Yes.
And that was the issue.
And that's all I spoke. And I spoke it to power, and I paid the price.
In the closing arguments, the Depp lawyer called your testimony the performance of a lifetime and said you were acting. What do you say to that?
Says the lawyer for the man who convinced the world he had scissors for fingers.
Really? Because he played Edward Scissorhands? Are you really fucking saying that? That makes no sense. But you remember when the acting, and I reacted to this, she had no tears. She pretended like she was crying, and she had no tears. Zero. That made no sense. That awkward silence, that made no sense.
The performer, I had listened to weeks of testimony insinuating that, or saying quite directly that, I'm a terrible actress. So I'm a bit confused how I could be both.
The Depp team argued that you were the abuser, that you instigated physical violence. Did you?
I never had to instigate it. I responded to it. When you're living in violence and it becomes normal, as I testified to, you have to adapt.
You say you were...
Okay, let's say I'm Amber Heard's lawyer at this point. I would advise her not to do this, because guess what? She already got found liable for defamation. This is no longer a court of law. This is no longer anything. This is her now rehashing the abuse allegations, and she could really open herself up to another lawsuit. She really could.
responding, but there is evidence. There are tapes in which you acknowledge hitting. There are tapes in which you say, I started the fight.
I know much has been made of these audio tapes.
I know much has been made of the evidence in this case. Are you really going to pay attention to the evidence? Just listen to me, because I just stepped on a bee. And now I have to pee. Give me a break.
First leaked online after being edited. What you would hear in those clips are not evidence of what was happening. It was evidence of a negotiation of how to talk about that.
Here's the thing. Then if that was the case, why didn't her fucking lawyers bring out the entire thing? There's a rule of evidence called the rule of completion. I think it's 104. And what it means is you can, if somebody brings in part of a recording and it really doesn't tell the whole story, you can bring in the rest of the recording. And so you can tell the whole story. Did you tell the whole story? Don't think you did.
With your abuser.
But I am looking at a transcript that he says, you start physical fights, and you say, I did start a physical fight. I can't promise you I won't get physical again. I mean, this is...
There you go again, relying on the evidence. Why are you relying on the evidence when I just stepped on a bee?
In black and white. I understand context. But you're testifying and you're just telling me today, I never started a physical fight, and here you are on tape saying you did.
As I testified on the stand about this, is that when your life is at risk, not only will you take the blame for things that you shouldn't take the blame for, but when you're in an abusive dynamic, psychologically, emotionally, and physically, you don't have the resources that, say, you or I do with the luxury of saying, hey, this is black and white, because it's anything but when you're living in it.
But
you're a fucking baby, Johnny. I'll grow the fuck up, Johnny. Give me a break. That's what she said. That's what she said on tape. Or not on tape, on recording, because everything's digital now. But that's what she said. And that doesn't sound like somebody who's cowering and taking responsibility for something they didn't do.
then there are other times, there's another tape where you're taunting him and saying, oh, tell the world, Johnny Depp, I, a man, the victim of domestic violence.
20-second clips or the transcripts of them are not representative of even the 2 hours or the 3 hours that those clips are excerpt from.
Could your side have just put the whole 3 hours in then?
I'm not a lawyer. As I testified to, I was talking in those recordings as a person in extreme amount of emotional, psychological, and physical distress.
She just sounds like she's full of shit. Okay, I know I'm getting animated. Part of it's because I'm fresh in trial mode, so I'm a little amped up. But she just sounds like she's full of shit.
He says he never hit you.
He
never. Is that a lie?
Yes, it is.
What about the witnesses who said they have seen you instigate physical violence?
I've seen firsthand how people will file rank and support the person they depend on.
This is what I'm telling you. She's really putting herself at risk for another lawsuit. I don't know. I don't think he's going to go to the well a second time, but he very well would have a claim and relitigate this whole thing with these new publication of the same old facts.
Did they all come in and lie in court?
I am not here to call any of his witnesses any names. I'm here to just kind of talk about it from what it felt like for me as a person who sat there.
See, now, here's the thing. If you're her PR person, the PR person has no concept of the legality of what she's doing. And you're on the losing side of things. And really, there's absolutely nothing to be gained. I don't think she's gaining any. I suppose people say in Hollywood, any publicity is good publicity, bad, good, or indifferent. But in this case, she doesn't come off like taking the higher road,
When I asked his lawyers, why do you think you won? And the answer I got was, because she never took responsibility for anything she did in the marriage.
I did do and say horrible regrettable things throughout my relationship.
Here's the thing. Is she able, in the course of this interview, to say anything that, either is mea culpa, I did this wrong or that wrong, or say anything that makes you feel, oh, you know what, I can understand why she said those things, or just put herself in a positive light. She's on the complete defensive throughout this whole interview, and I think she should have just let it breathe.
I behaved in horrible, almost unrecognizable to myself ways.
Bullshit.
I have so much regret. I freely and openly and voluntarily talked about what I did. I talked about the horrible language. I talked about being pushed to the extent where I didn't even know the difference between, right and wrong. I will always
to the point where she didn't even know right from wrong. Does that make any sense? She's just, she should have had these canned answers. I don't know who her PR person is, but she should have had much better answers. And she certainly could have taken the high road and say, you know what, it's unfortunate that we lost. I do stand by my testimony. I'm not going to rehash what my testimony was. But here's what I'm going to do going forward. You've heard politicians dodge questions. She should have dodged the question and try to put herself, tomorrow I'm going to be a better person. I'm not going to do the same things I did in that relationship, but here's how I'm going to go forward. And make herself sound like she's learned from the situation and become a better person. But instead, she's on the defensive.
Continue to feel like I was a part of this, like I was the other half of this relationship, because I was.
When you see this, that's like, you're full of shit. You're just, and in other words, she's not believing what she's saying.
And it was ugly and could be very beautiful. It was very, very toxic. We were awful to each other. I made a lot of mistakes. But I've always told the truth.
Not true. I've always told the untruth. Well, that's our reaction to Amber Heard's foray into the live, or not live, but into the interview with Savannah Guthrie. I thought Savannah Guthrie did a good job, but it really, she really should have picked and chose who she was going to do this in front of, how she was going to do it, had been a little more careful, instead of just rehashing how she got her ass kicked. And that's really what it came down to. And like Savannah Guthrie said, she didn't take responsibility for anything except for maybe saying that she, said some things that were bad. But she never started a fight, even though she said she started a fight. Anyway, I don't think it was wise. It was, she came off even worse than Elaine did, if that was possible. So, and here's the thing, I don't really have a axe to grind, either with Amber Heard or Johnny Depp. I could kind of give a shit less about either one of them. I like Johnny Depp. I love his movies. I thought he testified in a charming and kind of self-effacing way, and he didn't get rattled. She got rattled. And in fact, you can tell the angst on her face that she knows this interview is not going the way she was hoping. And it's over. It's done. They're going to have an appeal, but so the fuck what? So this is Bruce Rivers, Criminal Lawyer Reacts, reacting to Amber Heard's foray into the post-conviction or post-verdict publicity. So thank you for watching. Subscribe. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. Sign up for Patreon. We're doing some good work there. We've got a message we're trying to sell, and Amber should have taken heed of that message. Stop yourself snitching, and we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Miss Gutierrez asking for more training time, more armor days, shows you that she has an appreciation for what she's doing. And it is having that knowledge and acting in disregard of that knowledge. If you're knowledge and your disregard of it is because somebody else is pressuring you, unless it's coercive, like they have a gun to your head, it's not going to fly as a defense. Being this sloppy is negligence. And being this sloppy and knowing what the proper procedure is culpable negligence. Knowing what you're supposed to do and then kind of just cutting corners is culpable negligence, which means it's a gross negligence. And that's why she was found guilty.
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And it's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, your board-certified criminal defense lawyer, coming to you with our content genius that you know as Michael Rivers, Michael H. Michael Rivers, and I'm coming to you with my pearl handle pistol cufflinks that he gave me as a birthday gift. And so today we are reacting to the verdict that came in on Hannah Gutierrez. She was the armorer for the set of the movie Rust. And as you know, coming up in July will be the trial of Alec Baldwin. And we're going to get into a little bit of analysis of that later. But before we get to any of this, this is brought to you by eForms.com. eForms.com is a very effective way to avoid the high price services of somebody like me. If you need a power of attorney, business agreement, any kind of bill of sale, any kind of agreement that you need that you could get to protect you, so if you have to go to court, you got something in writing, go to eForms.com. My grandma does it all the time for her various business ventures and when we also need to get her out of jail. eForms.com is a very effective way to avoid a high-priced lawyer like me. Anyway, so let's get right to it. So Hannah Gutierrez was the armorer for the set of Rust. That means she was responsible for the safety and care of the firearm that was used that killed the director of photography or whatever she was, Elena Hutchins. Ms. Gutierrez is charged with involuntary manslaughter. What is involuntary manslaughter? Involuntary manslaughter is where somebody dies at the hands of another without intent, but with kind of a reckless disregard for the safety of the other person. Oh, man, I'm getting stuffed up. So, in this case, you have, and usually there's a duty involved. And if you look at Ms. Gutierrez, she has got the duty of care. In other words, she is responsible for this firearm and whatever goes into the firearm. And she was the last one to touch it before Alec Baldwin touched it, right? And so she has a duty to make sure that that gun is safe. If there's a breach of that duty, now, just because there's a breach of the duty doesn't necessarily mean that she's necessarily liable. However, she was found guilty, and really what it comes down to is the various things that happened during the trial and the evidence that came in about the lack of safety protocol and how this live round actually got into the firearm itself. So, I think I've told you about this before. My office partner had a case where his client was a police cadet, and his friend was a photojournalist and wanted to take a picture of him with his dog and pointing the gun at the camera. He pointed the gun at the camera, and the gun went off, and it went right through the lens and killed her. When you take an action that is so inherently dangerous, you appreciate the risk, in other words, and you act without any kind of regard, to didn't put the safety on, or made sure that the gun wasn't loaded. But yeah, because you know when a gun's loaded and when it's not, you can tell the difference by how heavy it is. But if you take an action without regard to safety, that is culpable negligence, they call it. It's more than just ordinary negligence. And that's what they have. It's got to be kind of gross negligence. In other words, like you're driving down the street and you go on the sidewalk, you don't really care if anybody's on the sidewalk or not, and you kill somebody. Well, you didn't mean to kill somebody, but you acted with deliberate disregard. That is what we're talking about here. Let's get into some of the coverage that we found in Law and Crime.
There's a negligent discharge on a movie set. Ultimately, who's responsible for that?
It would be the owner's responsibility.
Who put the dummies in Mr. Baldwin's den?
Hannah.
Did you go to classes or how did you get into it?
So you look at her, you see the picture of her in the courtroom. That's called the lawyer cleaning her up a little bit. She's got gold and purple hair like she's a Vikings fan, and she's looks pretty disheveled as she's sitting in the back of a squad car. But the important thing here to remember is that she's the one responsible for that firearm. She's the one that put the dummy rounds in. She's the one that really, without her, you don't have a case. She was charged with 2 counts. One, the involuntary homicide of Helena Hutchins, and then the other one is tampering with evidence. It had to do with some cocaine or cocaine-like substance that was found, and she was acquitted of that.
The live ammunition that you seized from PDQ Props, what did you do with it?
We submitted all the live ammunition for testing with the FBI.
And did you receive information that the live ammunition from PDQ didn't match the live ammunition on the set of Rust?
That's correct. It didn't match at all.
And isn't that in line with what Thel Reed himself told you about that ammunition being semi-wad cutter?
Yeah, so the statement that Thel had made about the type of ammunition that they were using matched what we found and what was provided by Seth Kenny.
So you found at PDQ exactly what Thel Reed told you you should find?
Yes.
And it did not match the live rounds on set?
That's correct.
And here is Seth Kenny, the ammo supplier himself, talking about the live rounds. Remember, there were actually 6 live rounds found on this set.
Sir, did you provide any live ammunition to the set of Rust?
No.
Did you ever give any live ammunition to Sarah Zachary?
No.
So that is important because Ms. Gutierrez, if she had told the sheriff one thing, then all of a sudden it turns out the ammunition came from someplace else. In other words, it didn't come from their normal supplier. You can't hang the jacket on the person who supplied the dummy rounds, right? And so if that information came from Hannah, which it probably did, then what's going to happen is she lied about that, and she's the one that supplied that ammo.
Have you seen photos of the live ammunition that was found on the set of Rust?
I have.
Did you possess any ammunition that looked like that?
No.
Did you become aware that you were perhaps being blamed?
That's exactly right. And when you do that, if you're not doing that, deftly, in other words, if you're doing that, if you're blaming somebody else, and they can prove that no, that's not the case, then it backfires on you big time. One of the things about this is that I don't know why she didn't try to take some kind of deal, and maybe there was no offer. I mean, she's looking at 18 months, so she's not looking at a ton of time. But it is still a felony, and she's going to have that tattoo of a felony for the rest of her life.
I started to sense that there was efforts to redistribute blame or the cause of this accident.
Mr. Kinney, did Ms. Gutierrez, with the assistance of Mr. Bowles, file a lawsuit against you?
They did.
Did you fully understand that you were being blamed?
At that point, it was quite clear.
Okay. Mr. Kinney, was that lawsuit later dismissed?
It was.
That really shouldn't have come into evidence, but the fact that she's trying to blame this person, and the fact that it was later dismissed, how is that relevant to their criminal trial? It really isn't.
Did Ms. Gutierrez walk away from the cart with Mr. Baldwin's gun?
Yes.
And who put the dummies in Mr. Baldwin's gun?
Hannah.
Did you happen to see or take note of where she took the dummies from to put in the gun?
She says she was going to check it with Dave, so I assume the church.
No, I mean when she put the dummies in. Did you see her?
No.
Okay, you don't know where she got those dummy rounds from?
No.
So then she says she's going to go in the church and check it with Dave, is that right?
Yes.
You indicated that you only saw 3 or 4. You didn't see 6.
I don't recall her fully rotating the cylinder.
Okay. You don't recall her fully rotating it?
I do not.
Okay. And even though the cylinder wasn't fully rotated,
So when you have this gun, it basically has a little door and it's a single 6. In other words, you put one round in at a time. It doesn't like pop open, to the left. Yeah. So like this one pops open like that, you can see that it's empty, right? Yeah. On this type of firearm, there's a little door right here. You pop that open, and then you can turn the cylinder so you can see each round in it. That's the way that works. Now, she claims that Dave handed the firearm to Mr. Baldwin. That would be a break in the chain, but it's still, even if that was the case, I still don't see that she escapes liability.
did you let that safety check sort of pass?
I did.
Okay. Were you criminally charged in this case?
I was.
And did you enter a no contest plea to negligent use of a firearm?
I did. I was negligent in checking the gun properly. And
That's really what should have happened here with Miss Gutierrez. She really, I mean, if they weren't offering anything that didn't involve prison, then I can see why they're trying the case, because there's no offer.
Gutierrez appeared on my left-hand side with the revolver, and she said, "Let's do the gun check." She opened up the latch to show the drum of the revolver. She rotated the cylinder. It was empty. Checked the barrel. It was what is referred to as a cold gun. And Ms. Gutierrez just took a few steps and gave the gun to Mr. Baldwin.
Now, that right there, that check to see that it's a cold gun is good for Mr. Baldwin. Because if he thinks he's getting a cold gun and they tell him it's a cold gun, then he's operating without that mens rea. And mens rea means criminal intent. So in order for them to prove, there's got to be some appreciation by the defendant of what they're doing. And he still is holding a gun. He's still pointing it near Elena Hutchins, but he thinks he's got a cold gun. And we'll get more into Baldwin in this. So one of the things that, the care and custom and the practice is also important here, because how you do things on a movie set, how you handle a firearm, and what is the safe procedure is really what's at issue here with Gutierrez. So let's